Hi, I'm Will with PPACG. Wanted to do just a quick overview of our GIS portal. Wasn't aware if everybody in the TAC is at least familiar with this resource, but over the last 2 years, we've been working pretty hard to take a lot of our data, make sure that it's been validated as accurate, and then putting it up where it's available for really any of our member governments or the public to be able to access it and use it. The link is in the notes, but it's just ppacg.maps.arcgis.com. That'll take you right to our portal page, which is what we're sharing right now, the regional GIS and planning data. You do not have to sign in. You do not have to have an account. If you do happen to have an account with ESRI or ESRI, either through your municipality or another organization, you are welcome to sign in and you can use the account, but it is open to the public, so you don't actually have to have a login in order to access anything on our portal. We keep the majority of our data down below on the popular maps and apps. This is where 90% of our traffic comes in. So most of the traffic is viewing either the PPRTA material or our traffic crash data, which is really popular. I think today what we're going to do is I'm going to go through looking at our administrative boundaries and just give a quick overview on how most of our web maps function. So if you wanted to filter some data or even just be able to print some data or save it or have some of your own GIS people access it, just show you how that works. So any of these you can click, they'll open up in a window. We can look at the PPACG administrative boundaries map that you see here. And when it first opens up, you just get the legend that shows you all the layers that are currently active. So we have some of the census urbanized areas, the municipal boundaries within our region, the PPRTA, the MPO, and the general COG boundary. On the left-hand side of all the web maps, we have a series of tools that control the overall look at the map and some of the general tools available and what you can do with it. Second from the top, we have the layers button. So if you wanted to explore these layers, turn some on and off, or add some new data of your own, you could just by clicking on that. Also, what's nice about this is when you look at the layers, you get a little prompt here, especially if you're not signed in, but it says get started. You can learn more about Map Viewer. If you click this, it opens up a tutorial that'll walk you through how to use the Map Viewer, how to customize your pop-ups, work with time data. So for example, if you had a layer that was either on our website or something you added that was time aware, you could actually animate that by time. There's all kinds of tutorials and stuff that it'll walk you through. But again, we're just going to go over some of the broad strokes here. But that's always available whenever you open any of our maps. You can also find that down below on the lower left-hand side where it says information. If you click on that, again, there's a couple of shortcuts and analysis. You can find out what's new and on how to use the map viewer. So there's always information down there as well. So on any of the maps, the first thing most people want to do is figure out, well, how are we going to turn certain layers on and off? How can we go ahead and clean this up? Maybe what we're after is we want to view just the PPO in relation, or the MPO in relation to the PPRTA boundary, and remove some of this other stuff. So when you're looking at the layers, you've got a little eyeball icon that comes up. And if you go ahead and click on that, it crosses out to let you know that it's no longer visible, or you can turn it on and make it visible again. So we're pretty familiar with the COG boundary. Maybe we don't need to have that on, and we can turn off the municipal boundaries here. And for now, we can turn off the urban areas and then get an idea of, okay, the MPO relative to just PPRTA. But maybe because the colors are a little similar, you don't like the colors, and maybe we want to change that. Not a problem. On any of these, if you click the layer, like we're going to go to the PPRTA boundary, you get some new tools that open up on the right side of the map. And these are going to be active for just about any of the layers that we have on any of our maps and apps. And so we can look at the properties, including changing the transparency or the visibility. But what we can also do is change the style. So that's going to change any of the layers, how they look, the colors, the outline. We can also go ahead and put on a filter, which we'll do in a second. And then we can also customize the pop-ups and labels if you want to. The most common thing that people want to edit though is the style. So in this case, we're looking at the PPRTA boundary. We can go to the style options, and we can see that we've got it set up as just a simple blue symbol here. But if we click that, we can change the fill color to something completely different. Maybe we'll go with like a red so it really stands out. And maybe we don't want as much transparency on it this time. And we want a stronger outline. So we can change that to like a black, and then increase the outline width if we needed to. And just hit done. And now we've customized that, and but it's kind of hard to see the MPO. Well, you can actually click and rearrange the layers as well. So we can make the MPO sit on top of the PPRTA, if that makes it a little bit clearer. And we can identify, oh, that's where we have some gaps within the PPRTA. Obviously, Fountain not part of the PPRTA. We have a couple of exclusionary zones for tax purposes around the airport that aren't included. Monument Palmer Lake, but then turning that off, we can see, but they are included within the MPO. Fairly easy to use. And then again, all of this is outlined on the instructions that'll walk you through, again, how to go through these different toolbars, change the colors, change any of the settings that you'd like. Something else that people often want to look at is maybe using a filter. So what I'm going to do is we're going to turn on the municipal boundaries, and I'm going to turn off the MPO. And so now we've got not all the municipal boundaries in the state. Again, it's just those within the COG. So Fairplay, Alma out in Park County, and of course Callahan, down to Victor and Cripple Creek and Teller County, and all the jurisdictions in between. But maybe we're looking just for a particular one. So we can go into municipal boundaries. And again, we see those tools on the right side of the map viewer that come up. And this is where if you wanted to change any of the symbols, if you wanted to highlight a particular municipality or give it a hatch fill versus a solid fill or change the transparency, you could do that. But just below the styles option, we do have a filter button. And with the filter, we can just build a simple expression. We can query out what we're looking for. So we can add an expression in here. And we can say where the name is, or we can choose another option if you have a FIPS code, or if you want to know areas where cities whose area is larger than a certain value, we can build that. So let's just go ahead and say where the area in acres, and then we can say it comes up with is at least, but we can say maybe is greater than, and then you can go ahead and type in a number, or what it'll do is it'll automatically show you pretty much all the values, and you can actually just kind of slide it around if you wanted to choose a different one. And it'll bring in on the map kind of interactively which municipalities would meet that criteria. But if you hit save, you've got that filter that would be applied. And we can even go ahead and add another expression if we wanted to. So if you wanted to say where the area is greater and the name is, well, if we did Alma, it's not going to come back with anything because Alma is not greater than our threshold. But we can certainly come down here and say where the name is Colorado Springs, and we can see that's the only one that meets the filter criteria. So you can filter this data. A common tool for that might be looking at some of our roadways. So I'm just going to open up a new one here. So the roadway network map, we've got a lot of layers built on the same data to illustrate different criteria. But again, we open this map, it kind of zooms into the general urban area. And if we go to the layers, we can see that rather than looking at it by functional class, perhaps what we're interested in is we want to get an idea of where we have the StrayNet classification. In other words, the routes that are meeting that strategic highway network classification. And so we can turn off the functional class and we can turn on the StrayNet, and then just those routes that meet or are currently on StrayNet pop up. And again, on the left-hand side, we can go to the legend and we get some of the symbology breakdown. But because the map is interactive, we can also click on any of these roads. So for example, we see that this route right here, airport, is a little bit different than the others. And we can click on that and see that this is a StrayNet priority 2 connector versus the Highway 24, Colorado 21 powers overlap here, where that is a priority 1 connector. So that's why it's symbolized with a darker line. It's a higher priority connector. And then, of course, the interstate is always going to be included in a StrayNet classification. So this was something that we can look at. I believe actually they're considering updating StrayNet right now, as I recall. Actually, we're looking at adding Santa Fe and Charter Oak Ranch Road to the southern gate here to Fort Carson. That might become a StrayNet Priority 2 connector in the future. It's something that they're currently evaluating. And when that happens, again, we'll update it. So the information that's kept on our portal is always as up to date as possible. But again, going back to perhaps functional class for these roadways, we can come back up here. We can turn on the functional class. I'm going to go ahead and hide our boundary and the MPO boundary and the StrayNet. And again, we can build a filter if we wanted to. And so in this filter, we can add an expression where perhaps we're looking at where we have that functional class. Again, for a specific route name, but in this case, maybe we want to look at is the FHWA NHA functional class. And instead of a minor arterial, we're going to look at where we have an other principal arterial, and we can see them come up and be filtered. And then maybe we're only curious on those where the owner is El Paso County. And we can zoom out and see those are going to be your number 3, in this case, other principal arterials owned by El Paso County and where they sit. So again, if you're looking for something like maybe for a grant or a planning project and you're curious about the functional class, or if it's on a national truck freight or state network or StrayNet or the NHS category, we have this out here.